PE ambassador, chief architect at a software company. He has built a lot of products and solutions. He understands the internals of how to develop an application. He is also an author and an international speaker, and in general, like a technology enthusiast who is interested in all things technology, with Java being very close to his heart. And he is also an author at the Oracle Java magazine. So that's about Taman. Taman, thanks a lot for taking the time to join us today.
No, thank you for organizing this kind of events to spread the knowledge and awareness about the new technology for the people. So I appreciate your efforts. And thank you for every attendee. I know it's like in India, almost it's late night, evening. And I'm based in Belgrade, so almost I'm at the end of my day. So I have nothing to say about myself. You already give a great introduction about me. So thank you for this. And I'm willing to give this presentation. I hope that you can enjoy it. And actually, this presentation is inspired by the column that I write for Java magazine. It's called Hidden Gems about each version of Java. So you can go to read more. And usually I include these links in the presentation. So I will share the presentation with the organizers and they can spread it for you. What is actually the main objective of this presentation? It's always that there is every 6 months we have a new version of Java, and this becomes really something really speedy, and we have to take care of the new things or we will get lost. Why? Because it's technology and speeding and the other one, and we have short period of release, and we will see this shortly in a chart. So this is some of my publication. This is the 2 links that I told you. Sometimes I have a sneak peek. So just like I give you before the release of 2 months or something, I start to write about what is expected, what we are expecting. There is some changes could be happen, definitely. And those are the final changes, and the hidden gems that you can have is in this other article, which is the column for this reason. To write about it. So what is the hidden gems? It's not like everyone were asking, like this is also, before I jump in, you can contact me at any of these, my social media, all my projects, and as a proof of concept or, any kind of problems that I face or I want to share, or a design or architecture, I do it as a project, as a blueprint. I publish it on GitHub. It's open for, fork and collaboration. And it's always, I'm trying to make it latest updated to either I'm using Spring Boot or Jakarta E and also Java. So you are always know what is the changes need to be done, and how the migration could be from version to version if you follow the commit and the releases in this way. So, or just Google my name and you'll find everything. Getting back to our agenda, we will speak about the history of Java very quickly, and to know where we are going, and the new changes. We're going to check about Project Ember. And Project Ember, it's all considered the Java language changes. And we're going to speak about Project Loom, because those are the main projects that are sponsored and brought some features in this version of Java. Sometimes you will hear about different project names, but in this case, this project serve different features that will plan to be to brought them in the new version. So this is about the project. So Project Panama, definitely we're gonna also speak about all the changes regarding the foreign memories, regarding vector computation, and all of these kind of things. All this kind of computation and out of memory, out of the heap and foreign memory, and talking to different native libraries, not Java, is under the umbrella of Project Panama. And definitely those are the main features organized by project, but also we have bunch of things came out to the language, from enhancements, from garbage collection, from removal, from deprecation, from added new functionality, from adding new, tools or something you have to be aware of. It's not, the language is not just features, It's all some other additions and removal. This is very important. In order to do proper migration, we have to know which APIs has gone forever or going to be removed. So I cannot take it into consideration, and I start to search about alternatives. So without further ado, let's jump into the presentation to save your time. And now I want to give you some introduction about Java history. You know, I was speaking previously and just I have cut myself about the releases. You can see since Java 8, it was, introduced 2014. We have the biggest change after 3 years, which is JDK 9 with almost 91 feature. I'm not speaking about the language changes and the enhancement and the release notes that you read. You can write a book of 1,000, pages about this new feature. And now I'm talking about the main, features. Main features means that comes as a form of Java enhancement proposal. The direct and so much obvious, but definitely there is security enhancement, bug fixes, new additions. Some methods has been added to do something. Those are not mentioned out there. So they are in release notes. So this is why I'm trying to get you the most of, this kind of gems, which is hidden, and they try to just give it to you in order to be aware what is in your language beyond the main features of this. So as you can see, the first LTS was Java 8, the second LTS was Java 11, and we have another LTS with Java 17. So if you are working a project, you are targeting to actually migrate to Java 17 directly, not Java 11, because now in next September, we will have Java 21, which is the next LTS. So if you did a proper migration to 17 and you're gonna be easily migrate to 18 and 19, and almost between 19 and 20, there is no changes. It's just preview features, enhancement for the same features, only one addition. And 21 just is going to stabilize those features that we're in preview features for a long time, and also introduce some other new preview features to be continued. So this is how it is. What is preview feature? It just, we cannot give you the full feature in 6 months. Then I would like you to have a feedback to try it. It's not production ready. This is why it's behind the flag, which is dash enable preview. So you can enable them. If you don't, you will get compilation error because they are not ready for production. So you can try it, give feedback, collect more feedback. And when we feel like it's convenient, stable, we are stabilizing it. It usually takes from one release to two release to stabilize the feature. But if it's really big feature and it has a lot of enhancement, it might spread, as you're going to see, across like 4 or 5 releases. So I hope that you understand the way that we are moving 6 months. So there is no opportunity to learn. There is no opportunity to catch up with things. So I wanted to just give you this in form of article on Java Magazine or as a presentation to make you aware of what is out there. So now let's check about Project Ember. And I told you Project Ember usually is about all the features coming to the Java language itself and the and the GVM. So what does it mean? Any change to the language, syntax, or features, it's under the umbrella of Project Ember. So I'm not going to speak about the all, no, I'm going to speak only specifically what is inside Java 20. So previously in Java 19, we have introduced something called record pattern. And let me just make this minimized. Yeah, as you can see, there is some legend here to just mention, on the right corner. When you have the presentation, if you click on this link that I'm like JIP 432, you will go to the full specification. You can read more about this feature. And I just want to give you also highlight that this is the first preview feature of this language, which means first introduction as a preview feature, it was in Java 19, and this is the 2-net preview feature cycle for collecting feedback in Java 20. So what enhancement we had in this record pattern? Record pattern, as I told you, introduced in Java 19, record pattern can be used with instance of and switch to access the fields of the record without casting and calling accessor methods. So if you would like to have some example, imagine that we have this as a record. And if we are using instance of with F, we can do like this. So instead of casting point, then P, no, we can declare it as a record pattern exactly like this. And immediately, if I want to print or make use of them, I can access them X and Y directly. So I don't have to say object. This was what was actually called the record pattern, not pattern matching at the beginning. Then we start to enhance pattern matching more to involve more structs. And one of the structs that we have is record. And we found like, okay, because it has obvious declaration, we can enhance it to work with pattern matching. So it has X and Y. Before this Java 19, I can just write object, instance of point, then space P, then P.X and P.Y. So with the switch, you can do it like this, case point into X, Y, and J, and then you can access immediately, the access. This was the record patterns with pattern matching. In Java 20, we have some enhancement, so which is inference of the type argument of generic records. We will see we don't have even to specify generics when we declare it, even if the record have generics. We will see an example. Also, we introduced the record patterns inside for loop, and also, during our work, we found there is superfluous, declaration that we don't want to confuse you with. Then we have to remove it. So it's called named record pattern. So we will see an example, and you will understand what is the construct. So consider a generic interface called box of type T, and there is two implementation of that box: rounded box of type T and triangular box of type T, which contain 2 and 3 values respectively. So this is the full implementation of this kind of hierarchy. So I have an interface called box. I have record rounded, and which the first one rounded box taking T of T1 and T2, and the triangular take 3 parameters, which is of type T. So how we can make use of this? So this is naturally what we can do, that we can have a method, when we declare it, box of type string, and, you write hello world, for example, and then you would like to print it. So in case of its rounded box of type T, var T1, T2, because I already know, and I don't have even to specify the type because of its type T, and then you can, access directly T1 and T2. This was introduced before, and you can check about the other instance, and you can do the same. So we found like, why have to specify T, even if the compiler can infer it from this declaration? So the new enhancement was to remove T, and you can write it like this. So you have box, rounded box, var T and T1, but how the compiler will know? It's already inferred it from the first declaration. So I see it sometimes it's not good for readability, but this is a feature that we have introduced to remove the, the type from the declaration, and it will be inferred and working normally. There is no problem. So with Java 20, as I told you, the parameter type can be omitted from the switch statement. You will see this also with switch patterns when we use switch with record pattern. This is for loop. This is completely new. Before, if you would like to have list of records and you would like to loop for them, you're gonna do this way, like for.p for each points, if it's list, and they will access p.i and p.j. The new way of enhancing for loop with record pattern is to introduce it like this. For point, which is consists of integer i and j, and inside these points, please do this. So I can just access I and J immediately without, requirement for casting and then calling the variable, the method. It's just more verbose. We would like to have Java less verbose. Removal of the support for named records. Yes, this is pretty simple because we could declare, the record in many ways. This is the pattern matching object instance of P, which I was mentioning when I was giving the first example. So you can P it like this, and you can say PI and P.J. as this way. The new enhanced Java 20, which is record pattern, enhanced to remove the variables and just put the declaration as a pattern, then you can access the field immediately. Also, it could be nested, by the way. If you have a point of, if you have a line and that line of type record point, you can have this nested, record patterns. So we found that we could have this case, object instance of a mix between pattern matching and record pattern, which was like annoying. In this way, you can use P or you can use direct, the variables. So it's, it's superfluous and has no meaning. And this is why we decided to drop this form of declaration. If you try to write it now, you will get compilation error. So this was the enhancement for pattern matching. So for pattern matching for switch, there is more enhancement to include record pattern. So as you can see, pattern matching has gone through many enhancements. So it was first previewed in JDK 17, second revision, it was the Java 18, third one 19, and fourth one in JDK 20. And in Java 17 until 19, we had pattern matching for switch allow us to do the following code. In 18, instead of when, we had and %, and then we found that it's not readable. So we with the case string is when length greater than 5, then do something. It's more readable. So when is just introduced since Java 19 as enhancement instead of and to make more sense. But it's also, I would like to mention that when is something is contextual keyword. It's not a keyword in its own. So you can use it as a variable name. You can use it as a method name. It doesn't matter. It will not give. Only it has a meaning inside the case statement of the switch. So with pattern matching for switch in Java 20, we have something really new. We throw match exception for exhaustive switch statement rather than incomplete class change error. This is very important for sealed classes and enums. Also the same that we have with pattern matching for switch for instance of, we have it here, inference of the type argument for generic records and the switch expression as well and statement, and also for sealed classes. Imagine this, we have a sealed class like this. We have record of type point, and it has two access point, like I point, I starting and end, I and J. You have a shape, and this sealed interface of type shape permit only implementation for rectangle and circular. Sealed classes has been introduced in Java 17. And then you have record, which is kind of rectangle. And this rectangle of type has point left up and point bottom right, which is implement shape. And you have circle, which has the center of the circle point. And also there has radius, which is implement shape. This is a complete hierarchy of this, sealed classes of this implementation. So you cannot implement something outside of shape, which is not permitted. You will get compilation error. But imagine this situation. We have a method that called print info, and it takes shape, and they would like to print the information of each shape individually. So we have case circle, var center, and radius, and then I can immediately access center and radius, and they are point. Center is a point. It will, print in I and J, and for radius, it will print the radius number. And for rectangle, we have this case, which is, and now we decided to compile it. So I created a circle with a new point, 10 and 10, and then 50. And I created the circle so you can see the result. Circle is a circle, which is the center is of type point with a value of 10 and 10 as an ing, and the radius is 50. So I'm using JShell here tool. So it's, interactive console. So I don't have to have an ID. I don't have to have something, fancy to work on. Just I open my console, I call JShell, and that's it. I can start immediately working as a statement. Same like when you are using JavaScript, you have console, and you just start typing and evaluate the language. So now I created this method and I'm trying to call it. When I call it, it will say, yes, the case match the circle, and here is the information of that circle. Okay, that's nice. And then I decided to add to the shape implementation an oval shape to permit it. Then I created a record of type oval, which is point with point, center, width, and height, which is implement shape. It's pretty nice. And imagine that this method already, which is print shape, is in a different, different class. So this implementation and okay, it will be working perfectly because you are just changing the sealed classes hierarchy. But if you do the following in an IDE, Java will immediately report you, this is in the switch statement for print information, you will find an error, which is invoking error, and it will report you the switch statement does not cover all the possible input values in the switch. So you will find this. But if you are using, and this is immediately if you have it, but if you have a big source code and each file is separate, you will only have this when you have it at runtime, because you only change the hierarchy of the sealed classes and you didn't change the print info with switch statement to cover all the cases. But when you run this, you will get this problem. You see, this is the flag that I use. I want to compile the source with shape and oval and app. There is no problem because I changed the engine. I have another class called main. I want to run it. And then I get this match exception. You didn't cover all the possible cases for that hierarchy. So this is enhancement. Before we throw the exception class mismatch exception. Inference, I will not repeat it. You know that we can use pattern matching and record pattern with instance of. Similarly, we can use it with case statement, and instead of having the type here, as you can see, easily you just can omit it and rewrite it like this. Case rounded box var T1, T2, and you can have the access. So just also the enhancement, extended to the switch statement. So all these are the changes that were introduced in Project Ember. And the good news are that all these features, both of them are not going to go through, a preview feature anymore. They are going to being standardized in Java 21. So this is a great news, so we can make use of these features in production without any problems. Let's now see what is the enhancement Project Loom. So for the people who doesn't know what is Project Loom or about, it's about the new threading model that has been introduced in GDK from the virtual threads and concurrent structured concurrency. We will talk about this a little bit, but the more enhancement and the first incubation in GDK 20 is something called scoped values. And in Java 19, it was the first time introduction for preview feature for, virtual threads, which is really gonna revolutionize the way that we write threads and write reactive programming from scratch in a very, very straightforward, more debuggable code, and also, more easier and not verbose code like reactive, actually. And the structure and concurrency is the way that you control unity fork. If you have multiple tasks need to be run within one unit, so you can have control over them. When you cancel one thread, it will cancel all the others. It will not lose resources and it will not introduce memory leakage. So then we need to transfer data between those virtual threads in an effective way, which is increase the performance. This is why we introduced scoped values. So scoped values, which are enable the sharing of immutable data. It's similar to thread local, but thread local, the problem is it's mutable. So any thread can access it, any thread can change it. You have to synchronize, you have to take care of when to remove and when to set. And scoped values, no, this is not the case. It just only And as I told you, enable the sharing of immutable data within and across the threads that are shared by the parent. So it's one way, sharing. It's not double ways, and it's not visible for all the other threads outside the scope of the sharing. So it's definitely we will be preferring using it over thread local variables, especially when using a large number of virtual threads. So scoped values is an incubating. What is incubating? Do you know what does incubating mean? Similar to preview feature, but this is only when it comes to APIs. When it comes to APIs like string or some classes, we put it in incubator feature. Then it goes to an incubator package, which is a module. And then when it becomes mature and ready for production, we moved it to its own module. And this happens with HTTP client that we introduced in Java 11. So it was java.incubator.http. Then when it becomes mature and ready for production, we moved it to java.net.http.net package in its own. Actually, it's not a package, it's a module. So the scoped value is an incubator API. And the goal of this proposal is to ease of use and to provide a programming module to share data both within the thread and within its child only to simplify reasoning about data flow. Comprehensibility, indeed, because making a shared data lifetime visible from the synthetic structure of the code. You understand who will see and how it's going to be shared between the child threads. And robustness, yes, because this is ensure that the data shared by the caller can be retrieved only by the legitimate callees, and it will never be changing. Performance, treat shared data as immutable, allow sharing by large number of threads without worrying of the synchronization and the accessing and removal of these data because someone else can just set it or changing it. But also, it's not a goal to remove thread local because this is the normal method, a normal way of doing sharing between the normal green threads, operating system threads. We call it green, which is the original threads run by Java. And also not to change the Java programming language. Scoped value. So if you would like to have a glimpse how they will look, how can I program it? Imagine that we have a thread local here and there is a user. And for the first call, as you can see, because I want to share the permissions of this user to access some server-side component like the server, I get the request, I check the privilege, I pass this privilege to the database manager, and then I would like to see if he's eligible to open a connection or not. Then I return connection based on this privilege. But those are different two threads, and I want to share data between them. In the older way that we are doing this, we just have a thread local of type user to hold that user. And then, we have the server component, as you can see here, have the request and response. And then we just, after getting the user based on the level, we say current user.set that user. And when it comes to database manager, I access the server to get the current user and the check if the user can open the connection, then I return the DB database connection if it's valid. So if I want to change it to thread scoped values, it's really easy. I will have the same code, but a little bit simpler way of sharing. So I have scoped value, same like thread local of type user, no problem. And then I will only remove the setting with something called scoped value where the current user holding this user run the application to handle request and response. And the request and response is going to be handled and the code will be shared from here to the application that handle request and response. And the inside handle, it will call the database connection and it will share the current user with the database connection, and then I can get the current user and the check about the permission. So together, where and run that we saw here with the scoped value provide one-way data sharing from the server component to the data access component. So this is the only change that we share. So, and it's only within that scope. This is why it's called scope values. Virtual threads. Virtual threads, as I told you, it has been introduced in Java 19 as the first preview, and this is the tuned preview. Actually, it was mature enough because there is a lot of effort has been going through the last 4 or 5 version. This is why we had of Java. This is why we had a separate GDK, which called GDK Loom, specifically for this purpose. So this is why the purpose of that GDK is to prepare all the Java inner API to work with virtual threads, not green threads anymore as much as we can. Then when we introduce these virtual threads to the application developer, which is us as developers, it's ready, and the whole GDK is ready with this kind of changes. So as I told you, the main purpose of virtual thread to introduction to Java platform is that it's lightweight threads that dramatically reduce the effort of writing, maintaining, and observing high throughput concurrent applications. Virtual threads, again, is the tuned preview API. And the good news, it doesn't have a lot of changes, just we are waiting for feedback in order to stabilize this version. The best and lovely good news that virtual thread is going to be standardized in GDK 21 LTS version. The changes only, we have 2 new methods that has been introduced in thread plus, join and sleep, both of them taking duration. And new methods in the future class that give you more control and result visibility about what's going on in the thread. So you have result now, exception now, and state now. I wrote about this in more details with examples in my Java magazine article, so you can go to access it. Also a change to the executor service with now extend auto-closable, so you don't have to close the executor service for virtual thread by your own. It will be done with trial resources, and also preparation for removal of a lot of other methods from thread group that were introducing lack of resources, of memory leaks, and a lot of performance problems. And their implementation has been changing to do nothing. It was throwing exceptions and now does nothing in order to be removed completely. Yes, we remove in Java. There is no more background compatibility. Structured concurrency. Maybe I didn't include here some examples, but the examples are in in the presentation, in the article. Also, it's more in depth in where they first introduced in GDK 19. You'll find more and more examples. So the same Project Loom has been introduced fully in GDK 19. So structured concurrency came into play also, and simply simplify the multi-threaded programming by introducing an API for structured concurrency. And this structured concurrency treats multiple tasks running in different threads as a single unity fork that you can control. This is why it will allow you to streamline, allow you to control and, recover from errors. So you can handle it easily, and you can make any cancellation for one thread. It will trigger cancellation for the other threads. They will not run normally as it happens before. So you are wasting resources and wasting memory. Also improving readability, because if you see the example, it's really simple, easy to read. And more importantly, that you can have breakpoints in each thread and it will show you how the code is running. It's not like reactive programming. You describe how the flow should work, and then you call describe, and then the actual work is going to run. So you cannot breakpoint in the middle of the map, in the middle of the convert, or the middle of calculation. So this is the main difference between both of them. Structured concurrency, as I told you, it's tuned incubation, just also for future collection. The only change that we have updated structured task scope to support inheritance of the scoped values, because it was working with thread locals. So this was very important to streamline the sharing of mutable data across all child thread tasks. So my friends, and this was all about Project Loom. And now we will be able to write a very, very easy, controllable, error recoverable code in multi-threading using virtual threads with a very high throughput without wasting a lot of operating system resources and thread. You can literally run over 1 million thread in a very cheap machine, which you couldn't do before. You just can handle 100 of green threads, which is really take more. If you would like to run more, means you scale more. Now you don't have to do this. So Project Panama. What is Project Panama? Project Panama is about anything that you can access outside the GVM. Hardware, software, and more of the computation. So under the umbrella of Project Panama, this is one of the huge features that has been introduced since Java 17, and it was first incubator and incubator and preview. Incubator means it might be working or it might be removed completely. When it reaches preview means it becomes stabilized. There is no much changes and just waiting for feedback in order to stabilize the feature. So this is the difference between incubator. You can take into consideration that this feature might change dramatically. The code completely could change and enhance it more and more, or we will deprecate this. It happens before we introduce text block, or there is a lot of changes going on to the current implementation of part of it. But when it becomes complete, it will be converted to preview feature for collecting feedback from you. So foreign functions and memories, both of them were two separate APIs, foreign functions, which only was dealing with accessing, the old way of Java native interface to call C++ or other APIs, especially C++ libraries. But in the older way using Java NI, it was really, really annoying and cumbersome, security vulnerabilities, and it's very hard to handle. So this is why the introduction for foreign functions, it was very important. Then we have foreign memories. The idea is to access memory outside of JVM heap in order to get more memory, process large files, especially for big data. When you are working with big data world, sometimes you need to read files which is of size terabytes of data. And if you are trying to consider your application to be growing to terabytes and you are running a cloud, you will pay too much. And this sometimes it happens as a process once per day, reading that file, but your application has to be configured to accept 2, 3, 4 terabyte of memory. Means you are wasting a lot of resources and money. And this is where the idea came out to have memory, foreign memory API. Then in Java 18, they are combined. They becomes foreign function and memory API. You become one to enable you to access native memory. That is the memory, as I told you, outside of Java heap, and access to native code, usually C++ library directly from Java in much easier way. So the changes happen to this because now it becomes a preview feature. So we have memory segment and memory address abstractions. They are unified. Memory addresses are now modeled by zero-length memory segments. We have a sealed class memory layout hierarchy to enhance the facility and to facilitate usage of with pattern matching for switch and expression and statement as well. And we have memory session has been split into arena and segment. If you follow my latest articles about hidden gems of Java, you will see the history of Project Panama with the same code, how it changes to take in enhancement about this kind of changes. Let me show you some code. For example, I would like to do two things here. I would like to read a C++ library to call a function called string length to pass an argument from Java function as a string, and I would like to off the heap outside the Java heap memory, read this value, get the result, and return it back to the GVM. So how can I do this? Here is the application in the most simplest way. This class is public static void main as usually, and we have first to get a lookup about the library, studio standard library of C++. So I use linker.native linker that default lookup. It will give me lookup for the default libraries included in the operating system. Second step, I will get a handler on the string length function in the C++ standard library. I need a handler in order to call it. So method handler, I call the linker to, with down call handle dot studio library lookup, please find the function called string length or throw an exception if there is no existence of such a method. Then function descriptor of Java long, I'm expecting Java long to be returned and converted and the address of that memory. And now I have the handler for that method. I would like just to call it and I will have memory segment. And that implicit allocator, please allocate the UTF string of happy Java conference. And I have this as a memory handler. And then all what I do is just get the handler for that C++ library and I invoke it with the string memory segment that contain the argument, happy Java conference, and then it will return finally the length of that string from the foreign function, and I will print that length out of the box inside my program. So this is how we get a link to the library and get a handler for the method inside that library. We wanted to pass a specific argument, and so we have it in a specific memory segment. And from this memory segment, I would like to retrieve it to pass it to that foreign function, and then make the calculation, then return, the result to me, and they will take this result to print it. So this is the full program for just accessing foreign functions and storing the result in foreign memory API. So the previous example with the new changes, you can see the changes here, everything is the same. Let's get back. Changes is at line 11 to 12. So memory segment has been split into arena, and now, and memory segment. So I have to use try. So it's auto-closable, and I convert Java string to C string and store it in the off-heap memory. And I have the arena, I open config, and I use memory segment again to get this arena from the handler from the arena, and then I just invoke like before. So this is the new enhancement done and the change in the code in order to improve the memory and also close it automatically without waiting us to close, to not lose memory and introduce memory leaks. Vector API, one of the longest feature that we have. So the Vector API, don't confuse about Vector API and the Vector class in collections. It doesn't have anything to do with each other. First previewed in JDK 16. So this is the 5th incubation, still incubation. Why? Because we have a lot of hardware to support, a lot of changes happening going on. So can you imagine it goes in 5 stages of incubation? So the changes in this release is to also re-incubate in JDK 20 with no changes in the API relative to JDK 19, and also include some bug fixes and performance enhancement. So it means that it's close to stabilization. It should be in incubator also because it's aligning with Project Valhalla, which is critical part of completing the Vector API. And this was the goal of Vector API. So it's for more scalar computation of Vector scaling API. So we have, reaching to this point, we have finished all the features of Java 20 and what has been enhancement, introduction, everything. Now I'm not giving you all the language and other APIs that has been literally introduced. I wrote about all of this in the article because this is a session, I gave you only a sneak peek about all what is really important for all the developers to be aware of. So it's make you very productive in your day-to-day job. First, we had before some problems. It was out there for a long time. So consider this code and consider compiling it about compound, compound sign statement. So we have short A, which has this number, and integer B. And imagine the compound signed operation A plus equal B. And then you would like to print A. And then A equal A plus B, similar to the above one, but it's more straightforward. It's not compound, not signed compound operation or compound operation. And then you print. What do you expect when you compile this code? It's supposed to be compiled? No, indeed, because, you will get this incompatible types, possibly lose conversion from int to short. But for which one? For the complete assignment, not for the compound. The compound, as you can see, it has been evaluated and give you wrong number completely because it's overflow, but it has been compiled. So this were like error prone for most of the developers who was not aware of this problem. And this has been fixed for all such, compound statement assignments, and for plus, for equal, for multiplication, for division, for everything. So we introduced a lint option called loosely conversion to give you warning about all of this. All, if you are just running lint with all, everything will be caught for you. So if you're trying to compile this again with this option like xlent loosely conversion, you will get this error. Till now, it will give you compilation error because you're trying to implicitly cast from int to short in the compound assignment, which is possibly lose the value. If you're just trying to compile it and run it, it will compile and run without any problem as a previous book. So this is very important to know, and it will always save you from this kind, especially if you're a junior developer. So you have to be aware of this. Since JDK 9, we have Gmod. Gmod is a Java module packaging way, and it was, introduced as a command line. The Gmod tool in Java is allow developers to create Gmod archives. A new type of archive is introduced in Java 9 that we will reduce the size of the module. And this modular way of Java packaging runtime component and their dependencies. But we have introduced in Java 20 new flag with the command line called compress that has been added to Gmod tool Y to introduce compression levels. And here it is. By default, Gmod tool compression the content of the Gmod archive using zip format. And also the accepted values for this flag is from 0, zip-0 to 9. And the where is 0 indicate no compression, very high performance. 9 provide best compression, but less performance because the unzipping. The default, if you don't provide the flag, will be in the middle, zip 0. It will be automatically compressed with the default of zipping level 6. So this is very nice if you are trying to package your API and seeking for performance or seeking for space, you can use compress in this regard. We have some for people who's aware of, Unicode and love emojis and everything. Good news of Graham support. So this update, imagine that if you have something like this and you would like to iterate over them in the old implementation before Java 20, you will get it like this. US separately, U and S and the man, and then 0 width joiner, Unicode character, and then the woman and separated, which is not the case. What the separation is, this is the family is an emoji and flag is different. With the new implementation, okay, the string will be broken into two grapheme like this, the flag and the family emoji. And whereas, just for your info, ZWZ is denoted as a 0 width joiner, which is Unicode 200D. Java documentation. When you read the Java documentation, you get a lot of enhancement. But one of the best enhancement that I like it literally, that this give like Java doc now include details information about JIPs, Java enhancement proposal, related to the preview feature on the preview API, because we don't have it. So if you can see that, for example, com.sun.source.tree, it's a preview, yes, but from which package it came from? I have to search, I have to try to know from which package. I go to the class, I read. In the new implementation, you will have it like this. You can have all the preview APIs, you can select, and it will filter also all the APIs has been included into this, feature flag and preview feature. So it's really nice, easily to get into, the documentation and read about it in a quick way. Match exception, you remember when I told you about, we changed it, to throw match exception that we have introduced with switch expression over enum. And now if the switch expression has, enums instead of sealed classes, better matching, we will use enable, preview feature. So it will, if you added one more enum constant, which is not covered in the switch statement, it will throw match exception instead of incompatible, class change, incompatible class change error. So we have now the match exception work on enums and hierarchy of the sealed classes. Lastly, let's say goodbye for some stuff, which is very important if you'd like to migrate. And I really always, caution and also taking into consideration writing about this and about the migration when I write the articles, because it's very, very, very important part. So identity hash map removed and replaced with method used object identity, because identity hash map actually is a unique implementation of the map, which consider the keys are equal only if they are identical by using equal operator to return true rather than using equal method as it's the norm that we get used to it. So, however, when the default remove and replace methods were added to the map interface in Java 8, they were not overridden, in identity hash map to use equal instead of equal, leading to a very lovely bug that were literally out there for 4 years. And this bug has been corrected over, not even 4 years. It's 8 years, actually, since 2014. Wow, too much time. Which may suggest that the identity hash map actually is not widely used and may contain other bugs, but we don't know. But these bugs has been solved. As I told you, in the way that we are enhancing threading, we are changing some methods and the thread group to does nothing. And then the thread class, we have changed the implementation of suspend, resume, stop to throw unsupported operation exceptions. And this is very important to know about it. Because now you will get an errors, you have to change it with the newly introduced functions. So also thread group, as I told you, should be, method and thread group should be used. However, in Java 19, these methods were also changed to throw unsupported operation exception. And in Java 20, they have just changed it to do nothing. As a part of this change, the thread depth has been deprecated as well for removal. So it will be removed in the future. We have a change in the URL constructors are deprecated because they are not reliable. And instead, developers are encouraged to use URI to construct URLs. How we can do this? So we have a URL like this, and actually it's pointing to my blog. And this is the old way to construct URL. There is no semantic checking about the protocol. There is no semantically checks about, the how the protocol is written, what the type of protocol. You can write anything and then you will get connection error. But when using URI, they have this. So we start to use URI to create So you will face that these new classes, new constructors are deprecated, and you will get warning by the compiler because it might be, removed in the future. So from URI, you can just call to URL and you have constructed completely the URL in the correct way. Security enhancement. There is a lot of deprecation and not enhancement, deprecation. So we have disabled TLS ECDH cipher suit. Why? Because, these cipher suits lack forward secrecy and are hardly ever used in practice. So why we have to maintain it, and it's obsolete and it's vulnerable. So we decided to remove it. Now, since we have DTLS version 3, there is no need to DTLS version 1 anymore. And it has been deprecated and disabled by default and in the configuration file. And if any attempt made to use DTLS version 1, it will result in an exception error, which is SSL handshake exception. Throw an error if the default security file fails to load before. When the default security configuration file under this path, which is config security Java security, failed to load or does not exist or something happens, the GDK would fall back, to using the hard-coded default configuration. However, in Java 20, this has been changed. So if the default configuration file failed to load, the GDK throw internal error instead of hard-coded default configuration because it's security. So the last part of this presentation was this security and the removal, and by far I reached the end. So I would like to thank you very much for your listening. I hope you found it valuable for you. I will share the presentation with the amazing organizers, and also you can contact me at any time asking questions. If you have questions, the organizers will collect it. If you would like to have some now, I can answer. So the stage is back to you, Starof.
Hey, thanks a lot, Naman. That was a brilliant session. Thanks for kind of giving us this very, very compressed but very, very engaging survey of new features and stuff like that. Because as programmers, most of us are like really, really wary of using something new because we don't know what does it break and stuff like that. So, but this session is a real eye opener in the sense that it's a lot easier than we think it is. So thanks a lot for putting this together. Really, really enjoyed the sections on big data, on using new features and what's being deprecated, what's coming up, how to prepare for an eventual upgrade to Java 20. So I have lots of questions, but time would permit only one. So and just prioritizing that for now. So one participant's asking if Java 20 is ready to be used in production.
Yes, Java 20 has been released since last March, and it's ready for production. And now we are working in Java 21, which will come in September. And the 21 is Java 20 was the implementary foundation for Java 21. Most of the features that is preview, if you are getting used to it, it will be very easy to migrate to Java 21. There is no breaking change. This is something that we do always. The release before the LTS, we're trying to not introduce a lot of changes or making a lot of stuff. So if you are stabilized and migrated to that version, in our case, Java 20, and now Java 21 LTS has been introduced, it will be easily, without any breaking change, moving to Java 20 quickly. You have many implementation for Java 20 for many vendors, each of them giving you different even support, like let's mention like Azul systems, for example, they give for each release, feature release version, which is only supported by Oracle for 6 months, they can give you full support for the whole version for 2 or 3 years. So the license and the support are different from vendor to vendor. You have Corito from Amazon, you have Microsoft GDK, you have Bellasoft, you have many, you have Thab, whatever the implementation you prefer. You have OpenGDK and Oracle GDK. Now even they changed the license for for developers and students to use it freely without any kind of payment, only on production for companies. So yeah, it's out there for production and you can use it without any problems.
Okay, so that's cool. And thanks a lot, Taman. Once again, that brings us to the close of the session. Thanks a lot for doing this with us, and we hope to bring you back for another session sometime soon.
It will be my pleasure, and thank you for invitation. Happy to speak to lovely Indian colleagues and friends, nation, because I have been to India, so it was a great pleasure for me to visit such a great country and big one. So greeting from Egypt because I'm Egyptian originally, and greeting now from Serbia, and it's sun setting almost. So see you next time. Enjoy your time. Have a good evening, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.